The people who get stuck the longest in a company are usually the ones who are the best at their job, not the laziest, not the least capable, the ones who always deliver, the ones everyone relies on, the ones who quietly become irreplaceable. And that's exactly the problem, because the better you are at your role, the harder it becomes for the system to let you leave it. And no one tells you this early enough. So you keep going. You work a bit harder, you fix a few more problems, you say yes one more time, thinking it will eventually pay off. But what you don't see is the trap forming in real time. Invisible work builds invisible careers. Reliability is often rewarded with more responsibility, not more recognition. And consistency over time becomes an expectation, not an advantage. You don't stand out by always delivering. You become the baseline. And baselines don't get promoted, they get depended on. There's a quiet rule in most workplaces: the more smoothly things run because of you, the less visible your impact becomes. Because nothing is breaking, nothing is urgent, nothing is screaming your name. So leadership assumes everything is just working. And just working doesn't create urgency for change. It creates comfort for them, not for you. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The better you are at handling pressure without complaining, the easier it is for people to forget that pressure exists at all. You absorb chaos so well that no one sees the chaos. You solve problems so quickly that no one sees the problem. You become efficient at hiding dysfunction, and then you get stuck maintaining it. But here's what makes this worse: you probably take pride in being that person, the one who doesn't drop the ball, the one who fixes things quietly, the one who doesn't need hand holding, because that's what a good professional looks like, right? That's what we've been told. Keep your head down, do great work, be reliable, don't complain, and eventually someone will notice. But in reality, people don't notice what feels normal, and you've made excellence feel normal. Think about the last time you stayed late to fix something no one else could. No announcement, no recognition. Maybe a quick thanks the next day, and then straight back to business. Or those nights where Slack messages come in at 9:47 p.m. Quick one, shouldn't take long, and somehow you're the one replying. Not because you have to, but because you can, because you care, because you know it'll get done properly if you do it. And slowly, without realizing, you train people to come to you for everything. And then there are meetings. You prepare, you think things through, you bring structure, clarity, actual solutions. But when the conversation happens, someone else says a simplified version of your idea, and that's the one that lands, not because it's better, but because it's visible, because it was said at the right moment, because they made sure it was heard, and you move on, because the work matters more than the credit. At least that's what you tell yourself. But here's the part nobody warns you about: if you consistently choose execution over visibility, you will always be seen as the executor, not the thinker, not the leader, not the one to move up, just the one who gets things done. And the system protects that role because it needs it. There's another layer to this, one that feels almost unfair. The more indispensable you become in your current role, the riskier it feels for your manager to promote you, because promoting you creates a gap, a problem, work that suddenly doesn't have an owner. And most managers are not rewarded for creating problems. They're rewarded for keeping things stable. So even if they like you, even if they respect you, even if they know you deserve more, they hesitate. Not because you're not good enough, but because you're too valuable where you are. Let that sit for a second. You're not stuck because you're underperforming. You're stuck because you're overperforming. Uh, in the wrong dimension. You thought doing more would move you forward, but it anchored you deeper. And this is where the trap gets even tighter, because at some point you start noticing it, the patterns, the same type of work, the same expectations, the same lack of movement, and your instinct work even harder, prove even more, be even better, as if effort alone can break a system that was designed to absorb effort. It can't. It just makes you easier to rely on. You might even start comparing yourself, seeing others move up faster, people who speak more, position themselves differently, sometimes even people who are objectively less capable, and that stings because it feels like the rules aren't fair, and you're right, they aren't, but they were never what you thought they were. You thought the game was about competence. It's not. Competence is the entry ticket, not the winning strategy, and here's the shift most people resist. Workplaces don't reward effort, they reward perception of impact. They reward narrative. They reward clarity of value. And if your value is hidden inside consistent execution, then your impact is invisible by design. You thought you were being valued. In reality, you were being relied on. You thought you were building trust. In reality, you were building dependency. You thought you were proving your worth. In reality, you were reinforcing your position, the same position, over and over again now. Pause for a second. This isn't about blaming managers or calling the system broken. It's about understanding how it actually works. Because once you see it clearly, you stop taking it personally. You weren't overlooked because you lacked something. You were overlooked because nothing forced the system to reconsider you. Everything was working, and you made sure of that. And here's the part that might feel strangely relieving. You weren't weak. You weren't naive. You weren't doing it wrong on purpose. You were just playing by rules that sound good, but don't move you forward. You were loyal to a version of work that confuses exhaustion with value, that equates being needed with being respected. That tells you that if you just keep going, someone will eventually reward you for it. But systems don't reward silent sacrifice, they optimize around it. And once you see that, something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, but quietly. You start questioning things, small things like, why am I always the one fixing this? Why does this keep coming back to me? Why do I feel responsible for things that were never officially mine? And more importantly, what would happen if I didn't step in every time? That question is uncomfortable because part of your identity is tied to being the reliable one, the capable one, the one who doesn't let things fail. But that identity is also what's keeping you in place. So the shift isn't about becoming worse at your job, it's about becoming more intentional with your value. It's about choosing where your effort goes, and where it doesn't, maybe you start letting small things surface. Not everything needs to be silently fixed. Sometimes visibility comes from allowing problems to be seen, not just solved. Maybe you speak a bit earlier in meetings, even if your thoughts aren't perfectly structured yet. Because waiting for the perfect moment often means missing the visible one. Maybe you stop over delivering on things that don't move your position, not by doing less overall, but by doing less of what keeps you invisible. And this one is subtle. You start documenting your impact differently, not just what you did, but what changed because you did it, what improved, what moved, what would have broken if you hadn't stepped in. Because impact isn't just work, it's the story around the work. And if you don't tell it, someone else will define it for you. Another shift, you build replaceability, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's one of the strongest signals of readiness to move up. When you're the only one who can do something, you're locked to it. When others can step in, you become movable. Train people. Share knowledge. Let go of being the only safety net. It doesn't make you less valuable, it makes your value transferable. And then there's boundaries, not the dramatic kind, not I quit everything energy, just small, consistent signals. You don't reply instantly every time. You don't absorb every last minute request. You don't automatically say yes, not to prove a point, but to reshape expectations. Because people don't respect boundaries you never show. This isn't about playing politics in a manipulative way. It's about understanding that work is not just output, it's positioning. And if you ignore positioning, you leave your growth to chance. There's one more thing, and it might be the hardest to accept. Being good at your job is not what gets you out of it. Being seen differently is. That requires discomfort. A different kind than working late. A different kind than fixing problems. The discomfort of being visible, of speaking up, of not always being the quiet backbone, of letting go of the version of you that everyone relies on so you can become someone they reconsider. Because if nothing changes in how people see you, nothing changes in where you go. And maybe that's the real trap. Not that you're too good, but that you became too comfortable being needed in a way that keeps you still. So next time you feel that urge to jump in, to fix it quickly, to carry it quietly, pause. Not to stop caring, but to choose consciously. Because the goal was never to be the best at your current role forever. It was to grow beyond it. And here's the line most people learn too late: being indispensable in the wrong role is the fastest way to stay exactly where you are